why Bitcoin matters. And so when people have asked me what they can read, I always say, read Why Bitcoin Matters from Mark Andreessen. And then he did another post in an interview in the Washington Post 5 months later. Two of the seminal pieces for me that it took me a long time to find, he was right on everything he wrote in there. And it really is the thing of, why do you want to understand what Bitcoin is? The paper was digital money. They solved the problem that he wrote. Every programmer he sent to go spend the time on it says he should get the Nobel Prize, meaning Satoshi. So once I started to realize that exponential innovation was just a math formula, that it was compounding very rapidly, and that all of these things would change, I realized, like you did, that the brain's not meant for this and that everyone didn't know how to talk about it. So that's when I started saying, there's no such thing as recession, because you guys haven't made the transition yet to understand that software and everything else can't be met.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, you completely sideswiped me with that statement. It was in your office when you said, listen, I don't think there'll be recessions again outside of exogenous events. And I went away and took that whole GMI article, in fact, anchored a whole bunch of stuff around that. And I think you're right. It's, you know, it's very difficult with the structure of the economy and how it is for that to happen. And then you've got the debasement of currency that allows you not to have a collateral or credit crisis. So in which case, and we've also, you and I talked about this as well, another conversation for another day, but we've talked about this, is we've replaced a debt-based economy for an equity-based economy, because all new companies are now formed out of equity and not out of debt. You used to borrow money, go to the bank, start a business. Right? Banks don't fucking lend you money to start a business now. You have to get equity. So then it's less systemic risk because you don't blow up debtors in the banking system.
So if people, they go through this, like, well, who has a lot of debt? It's all the old industrial companies. So if you go look at Ford, the stock is unchanged for the last 20 years. If you go look at like commercial real estate, what returns are commercial real estate going to have going forward? Housing market is
AT&T, they're all the same.
They're all the same. And so we're actually doing what's supposed to happen. There's no cyclicality. These companies never come back anymore. They just die a slow death. And they're kept alive because they have voters. And at the end of the day, when the S&P goes down, and this is why, I said last week was such a big deal, anyone who really thought inflation was completely dead, there's no way to look at what happened with core CPI and have it be the largest in 30 years outside of COVID for a month-over-month number, and not realize that, okay, we're not going back to where we were before 2019. We may not, I don't think we're going up very much, but I think we're going to sit there. But it makes tariffs really, really hard when the median voter is already not happy. They're already compliant. We had the University of Michigan numbers come out today, and the 5-year inflation expectations, which I agree are biased by the political side. So everyone who's a Democrat thinks inflation is going to be up dramatically. But regardless, you have it at 30-year highs outside of COVID. You're just it is 30-year highs. It's not even ex-COVID. Today we got 3.5% for 1 year. It's just a time where the administration wants to do tariffs, but it's very hard with fiscal dominance with this problem, because if you knock the stock market down, tax receipts screw the deficit. So tariffs for what? You need tax receipts. If the tax receipts go down, that's a bigger nut than he can get in tariffs. So it makes it very difficult, because as inflation's higher, if he does tariffs and that takes it up another 40 basis points, 50 basis points, and the equity market sells off 20% out of fear, then you've got a bigger problem here, because he can't get the tax receipts, because that's where we are as a market. We've got the stock market as the biggest generator of tax receipts in the country.
So how do we solve this, or how does it play out this year and next year?
I think AI continues to dominate. I really think the Meta thing was
a big signal.
Yeah, they're paying for amortized CapEx through making sure that they don't have compensation expense and employees going higher. And I think with agents and humanoids on the way, and everyone can debate when they have a huge impact, but the reality is every day they're going to have an impact.
Jordy, wasn't it? I can't remember whether it was a bank. Somebody also made an announcement just in line with this, which is they'd make record profits, but bonuses weren't going up. And I'm like, fascinating.
There was a Bloomberg article a month ago that talked about the fact that the CTOs, and this was on this, expected the employee numbers at the banks to be 2% lower. I think it was in the next 3 years, maybe it was 4 years. There's no such thing as a bank ever forecasting that the number of employees would be down 3 years from now. The second thing is Jamie Dimon, on his, return to work thing, publicly came out and chastised his employees. Now, again, it wasn't that long ago they had to beg people to work. Forget getting them back in the office. They're not worried about people quitting is the point. The problem is to fire people because of AI is a no-no. So you're better off getting them to quit. It's much cheaper, so people realize, having worked at a bank and having worked at a fund. Firing people, there's severance, there's all kinds of stuff. Quitting and going someplace else, you lose that expense. But I think the labor capital thing is going to become a much bigger challenge going forward. No doubt.
There's something you said that was been sticking in my head since you said it. Yeah, we talked about Mark Andreessen saying it's all going to be fine. A bunch of people say it's all going to be fine. I kind of think that over time it will be. We'll figure out different ways, and I think the crypto economy and the community-based economies and stuff will solve that. But I think they're also all lying because they don't want the political backlash. They want the green light. They've got a 4-year green light to do whatever they want now. And so none of them are going to say it's going to take your jobs.
Yep.
They say at the margin it will, but they're highly incentivized because the size of the prize here is like staggeringly big.
So here's the thing that I don't believe we will have job losses. I believe we will have lower hiring and there will be displacement. But we have a shortage of physical labor jobs in this country, and it's a big number. So that's where humanoids will eventually fit in, but we're not getting humanoids of mass numbers in the next 5 years.
We're not going to have humanoid plumbers yet,
No. It's not coming soon. Can they already do some of that stuff? Yeah, sure. But we're ways away from that, and there's a lot of politics. And if it's not in 4 years, we don't know who the next administration would be and how much they'd be protecting jobs. So people don't have to worry about that. Nurses, doctors, we're not replacing nurses and doctors. And people, even if they're going to live longer, the people that are really unhealthy right now, they're still going to be unhealthy. And we have a demographic problem that is still coming up. So there's just no way to not have a good job situation.
And also, we're just running down the baby boomer population, and we're just not going to replace those jobs.
Exactly. And nobody wants those jobs at a younger level.
No.
Which is the issue. Again, I just think that three of my daughters are in the healthcare / social work field. Talk about high stress and how difficult it is. And they work a lot of hours, but they're not dealing with people that are healthy, and it's not fun. So the work thing is really the big thing. So you asked the question as to how this plays out. If profit margins keep getting better, the stock market will be fine because the companies will keep doing buybacks. And I just don't see people selling off stocks as long as profit margins are high. Earnings are not going to fall unless we get a big change in the economy, as we know, or a big rise in inflation like we saw in 2022. So you either need a 2020 playback or a 2022 playback. And I don't think either of those are coming. I think rates are kind of stuck around these levels. Inflation's stuck around these levels. GDP will go up or down a little. And so at the end of the year, it's not a question of whether I think earnings will grow. It's really a question of what the path to the stock market kind of moving that way. I have talked about the fact that I do think the Mag 7 and the rest of the world are going to kind of migrate towards each other. We're seeing some of that right now. Bitcoin should outperform the Mag 7, and institutional adoption will accelerate if that's the case. So I will finish on one point that we haven't yet talked about. I really do believe the network effect, the point where Facebook starts and it grows because of people more and more people using it in the ecosystem. That is where we are with crypto, and the volumes of stablecoin and AI agents will bring profits to individuals at home and profits to people around the globe. And even though a person in Indonesia does not have enough money to move crypto, when you combine all 7 billion people and each one of them has $100, then all of a sudden they have the ability to move stuff, or at least the adoption will go. When you brought that up, you follow adoption, I follow adoption. Volumes in stable coins are going to be a very big part. So the ecosystem to me is going to grow rapidly this year.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think you're right, that train of thought where the disruption of AI forces people into the crypto economy, which forces more adoption, is going to be bigger. So I'm going to leave you with one train of thought, because I think it's an interesting one. Satya Nadella announced that they have a bloody chip this big that is quantum. And it can do compute in 1 second, or 1 second, that takes, I think it was something like 10,000 years for all the computers on Earth added together to do.
Yep.
Okay. So everyone's like, oh, that's amazing, and people are starting to say, like, I had a conversation, someone's like, well, they're going to crack all diseases, they're going to be able to do this. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You have no idea what happens when you put that chip with AI. That is God. Right? There is no limit to the power of this thing when you do that. And Nadella said something quite shocking. We all thought this was 15 years away, then 10 years away. He goes, it's only a few years, 2 or 3 years away. I'm like, so this is the leap to ASI, where we are not now, there's a different structure of the planet. It's just, we are complete. That, it's just, and I don't know what that's going to mean to anything. I mean, literally, once you've got something that can do all the compute mankind has ever done in history and do it in 1 second, and then you add it with self-learning AI, then I don't know anymore. That's beyond, the economy's going to change structure.